Today's video is sponsored by Reedsy. More on them in just a bit. So I've been writing my novel for a really long time. I've blazed through parts of it, I've stopped, I've restarted, I've scrapped whole entire sections, I've scrapped whole entire drafts. I've made so many mistakes and I've also learned so much. Now I have a full-time job and that really changes the game as far as time management goes. It really constrains the amount of time I have to read and the time of day I can do that and the circumstances under which I'm writing. I don't have as much wiggle room to blunder as frequently and as largely as I've done in the past. I'm sure it'll still happen, but I want to get better at controlling that. So in this video, I want to share with you some tips and tricks for continuing to write while you have a full-time job, and some advice about the blunders that I've come across so that hopefully you won't have to restart as many times as I have, because trust me, with the limited free time that I do have, I don't want to spend all of that time making the same mistakes that I always have, and I don't want you to either. So let's get into it. Part 1 is sufficient planning. This one I thought I understood, but a couple months ago I completely redid my planning and it helped me so much. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." And I think that I took that, that sentiment, that idea that you should prepare a lot, even more than you actually spend doing the thing. I really took that to an extreme, way further than it was ever intended. I thought that the planning that I was doing was getting me closer to my goal, writing a book, but I was actually planning in the completely wrong directions, spreading myself too thin. My plot lines were convoluted. My characters weren't, they had detail, but they weren't real somehow. And I sunk so much time into that when I should have been kind of more focused about it. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So when I was first writing this, I was trying to do multiple POVs, which is extremely difficult, and I don't think is something I want to do for my first book ever. It was really getting out of hand. I also had multiple plot lines going in each of the POVs, which is just way too much to manage. If I did manage to do it all, it would end up being like an 800 to 1,000 page book, which is not what I'm going for either. I'm going for like 200, 300 maybe. I just want to write a manuscript. It doesn't have to be anything that's crazy long or crazy complicated. I think my philosophy here is I want to complete the manuscript so that then I have something to change and add upon and, make more complicated in the second draft, but I just need a manuscript in order to do that, and, trying to focus on too many things was not working for me. So my friend and former coworker, Jo, actually, gave me her 4th grade English lesson during the workday one day. She explained to me, that plot arc we've all seen with like the rising action and the climax and the falling action. She walked me through that, which is something I've seen before, but I needed a reminder of. So that was really helpful. Also talking to Haley about what I'm writing goes such a long way. She's the one who pointed out how complicated and unnecessarily big it was becoming when I really was going for something that's a lot smaller, a lot more down to earth. So I scaled it down to just one POV character, just one central plot, and just one subplot. And we'll see if it grows from there, but for now, that's what I'm going with. There's a concept that comes up in writing all the time about pantsers versus plotters. Pantsers being people who, start with a concept, start with their characters, and then see where it takes them. They're sort of flying by the seat of their pants. Whereas plotters are those of us who come up with, the entire outline, everything that's going to come up in the story, how it's all going to fit together. They plan all that out from the beginning and then write everything according to that plan. And I really thought that I could be more of a pantser. I thought that I could start writing and see where it takes me, but I found that I actually didn't get very far the times that I tried that, and I'm really more of a plotter. And looking back, this makes total sense. In college, the way that I would write essays would be starting with an outline. So I would, kind of have intro paragraph goes here, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, however many, synthesis, conclusion, that kind of thing. Then I would go through each of those and be like, okay, in the intro, I need my thesis. In the first paragraph, I need an opening sentence, a piece of evidence, an argument for that piece of evidence, and something to take away from it. And then I would have that for each of the other paragraphs as well. And then I would go through and actually write all of the opening sentences. And then I would go in and I would write the arguments that I'm making based on those opening sentences. And I'd go for the takeaways and write all of those, kind of filling in the outline as I go. And so what I would end up doing is never having a full draft until it's complete, because every step of the way I'm just adding space specificity. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. I made an outline finally. I figured out what's going to happen in the book, and then kind of going through and adding in the scenes and what needs to happen in those scenes, and then going through and actually writing those scenes has become a much more manageable task for me and takes a lot less time and a lot less guessing out of the equation. So that's one way that I'm continuing to write with a full-time job, is that I can fit in, if I know that I don't have a lot of time to write, I can outline more specifically and actually be making progress towards that end goal. Because even if I'm not writing the nitty-gritty actual prose of it, I know that I'm making the outline more specific and I'm getting closer to arriving at the destination I want. That destination being the complete manuscript. So I can kind of choose the level of engagement I want, whether I want to be doing dialogue, or if I want to be doing description. If I want to hop around from scene to scene, I can do that. If I have an idea for one of the plot points, I can enter and just do that plot point, knowing how it all fits together. As far as getting things done with a limited time frame, this is working really well for me. One hurdle that I've actually had to overcome is apathy towards the specific plot points. I've read such a variety of stories, and something that I've a trap I've fallen into has been not really caring what specific things happen and more worrying about how that impacts the characters and the sort of overall plot. The difference between me as a reader and me as a writer is that the writer has to care specifically about each thing that happens and have a preference as to why that thing happened. If I don't particularly care how the story goes, why am I writing it? There's really no point, and it makes it incredibly difficult to actually do the act of writing it. So the clearer I can get on my preferences for how the story should go, when I feel that the specific thing that's happening actually matters to the plot and to the characters, that's when I'll be able to write the scenes most effectively, and that's what planning is allowing me to do. Now, point number 2 is to watch writing content. Congratulations, you're already doing it. Hopefully you know the benefits, but for myself, surrounding myself, immersing myself in examples of people who are also writing their books is really great motivation and helps me to sort of identify with that community. And something about my brain thrives when it's immersed in whatever I'm currently engaging in. You can call it hyperfixation, you can call it tunnel vision, whatever you want to call it. Just like surrounding myself with whatever that thing is gets me to think about it even when I'm not doing it, and that's what kind of keeps my momentum going. As an example, I will admit that when I'm hyping myself up to make a YouTube video, sometimes I'll go back and watch my other YouTube videos to get in the headspace to make a YouTube video. When I was in high school, I used this tactic a lot for photography. I was super into photography, and so I would watch photography YouTubers, scroll through photography Instagram pages, just gathering inspiration, learning as much as I can while I'm not doing photography, so that then when I get the chance to do it, I can fail as best as possible. I can learn as quickly as possible. I can try out techniques that I've seen other people use. I can try and recreate effects I've seen other people do. So the whole experience becomes more all-consuming in a healthy way, in a way that I like. So I really like seeing writing vlogs because I get a glimpse into other people's process. I get a glimpse into other people's struggles and what they're overcoming, and it helps me to feel like I'm part of a movement in a way. Whether that's with photography or with writing or with reading. It can really be for anything that there are videos about. I think reading can have a similar effect as long as I'm reading with an eye for the author's voice, for the type of prose, for the literary devices they're using. Reading can actually have the same effect for me, where thinking about writing while I'm reading gets me to incorporate some of that essence into whatever I'm writing at the time. I noticed that while I was reading a Wheel of Time book, I wrote a short story during the time that I was reading The Great Hunt, and I noticed that it was, my prose style skewed towards Robert Jordan, which was kind of a funky experience because I don't think I have a very similar writing style to him. But while I was reading his book, it kind of rubbed off on me a little bit. And I think I see that happening with anyone, depending on who I'm reading. So point 3 here has a little overlap with the last one, but seeking out professional advice and peer feedback can be a game changer. Now, I don't have connections in the publishing industry. I don't know any famous authors, but finding high quality advice and honest accurate feedback can be the key to sort of unlocking your potential when you actually do get a chance to sit down and write. And that's why the sponsor of today's video is Reedsy. Reedsy reached out to me to sponsor this video because they just launched their How to Write a Novel course. This course is taught by best-selling author and ghostwriter Tom Bromley and is literally exactly what I wish I had before I started writing this novel and kind of, had to fumble through the roadblocks myself. It would have been so incredible to have this expertise delivered in a professional way from the get-go. In this course, you'll have weekly lessons and check-ins with your instructor and cohort. You'll have live masterclasses with guest authors and writing coaches, as well as plenty of chances to get feedback directly from your peers and your instructors. Now, what really makes Reedsy's course stand out to me is the fact that they provide a supportive community hub to talk about everything writing related. I don't know about you, but I don't know many other people who are trying to write a novel for the first time, and it would be so incredible to be connected with a bunch of people who are guaranteed to be going through the same thing as you, facing similar challenges, and would be able to, help you work through it. In college, what I would do on the first day of classes is I would make a group chat for each of the subjects I was in. There's just a few people who I sat next to on that first day, where we could, ask each other questions about the class, talk about the homework, study together, things like that. This is what this reminds me of. While you are investing time up front, it is a 101-day course. It's going to save you so much time down the road when you already know this stuff going into your first draft. The next cohort is starting on September 2nd, so if you're at all interested, click the link down in my description to claim your spot. The cost of the course is $1,250 per person, with the option to pay in 4 installments. So what you're getting here is a premium course. It's not some sort of cheap hack just trying to take your money. This is a legit course that's going to be teaching you a lot of useful information. It's always cool to have a sponsor that is directly relevant to a video I was already going to make, so thank you so much. Now, point number 4 is going to be habit stacking. This is something that I'm struggling to do successfully at the moment, but I want to make it a more consistent staple, and you'll see why. Now, this mainly involves front-loading the decision to write so that I don't have to stress about it while I'm not writing, and I don't have to worry about when I'm going to write next. I'll already kind of have it programmed into my life to recur automatically. I think this is going to save me a lot of time and brain space in the long run. Now, if you've dipped your toe into self-help literature the way that I have, you may be familiar with this, but for those of you who haven't heard of habit stacking, it's basically just tacking the habit that you want to form onto the tail end of a habit you already have. So for example, after I brush my teeth, I will take my allergy medicine. And so every time I brush my teeth, that's a stimulant, and my response is then I will take my allergy medicine. And so I end up remembering to take my allergy medicine way more frequently than not, and my life is better for it. There you go, habit stacking. So in order to do this, I need to find a time that's gonna work really well for me to write. And with a full-time job, that is challenging. I think what I'm gonna start with is after I wash the dishes, I will write for 25 minutes. After I do the dishes, I will write for 20 minutes. 20 minutes is an approachable amount of time for me. And most nights of the week, I have 20 minutes right after dinner, after I do the dishes, that I can, sit down and dedicate to writing. So I may have to adjust this based on the day of the week because there's like 1 or 2 nights where that might be tricky. But in general, I think this will be a good starting point and actually get me to sit down and write more consistently, because I do know that consistency is more important than the sort of amount of time a writing session takes. 20 minutes might not sound like a lot, but trust me, when you're doing it consistently, it's gonna add up, and it's something that I really need to get better at. I'll keep you posted on how it goes, and if you made it this far in the video, I think you'd be a great fit to be a subscriber of this channel. My name is Sam Cody, and I talk about reading and writing on this channel. If that sounds interesting to you, feel free to come along. If you'd like to see how I keep reading with a full-time job, check out this video right here, and I'll tell you my tactics for that as well. That's all. See ya.